Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're digging into a really fascinating stack of sources today. They tackle this paradox, this really painful question. Why do we so often end up hurting the people we actually love the most? You know, our family, partners, closest friends.
It sounds almost cliche, doesn't it? But there's some deep scientific truth there. So our mission today is to unpack the psychology behind it. Using the sources you've gathered, we'll look at everything from like those small daily annoyances right up to why we sometimes pick partners who seem, well, destined to repeat past hurts.
Yeah, and we kick off with something pretty stark. Review author Deborah South Richardson looked at decades of aggression research. Her takeaway: it's not the strangers we need to fear, which is chilling. Statistically, harm is most likely to happen in our closest relationships.
Absolutely. And it's important right up front to clarify what we mean by harm here. We're focusing on aggression. And the key thing, according to these sources, is the intent to cause distress.
Intent. Okay.
Yeah, intent matters. Whether it's physical, verbal, or emotional pain. If you accidentally hurt someone, that's one thing. But if the intent was there, that's aggression.
Got it. Okay, so let's get into part one then. This idea the researchers call everyday aggression. It's kind of the lens for understanding all that low-level hurt, the friction within our inner circle, right? Family, friends, partners.
Exactly. And that intention piece is crucial. So, like, if you forget to text a friend back because you're swamped, that's probably not aggression.
Okay.
But if you deliberately ignore their text for, say, 4 hours just to make a point or punish them for something minor, that crosses the line. The intent to cause distress is there. That's the difference.
Right. And this leads straight into what the sources call the intimacy safety paradox, which is kind of mind-bending. The idea that we feel more free to be aggressive with the people we love most. We save the worst for them.
It sounds awful when you put it like that. Are you saying trust and safety somehow breed disrespect?
Well, essentially, yeah, that seems to be the dynamic. The more trust builds up, the safer we feel, the less we monitor ourselves. We kind of drop the social mask, stop editing.
Yeah.
Which is why you might snap at your spouse about forgetting the milk.
Right.
But you'd never dream of yelling at your boss for a much bigger mistake.
It's that contrast, isn't it? Self-control out there, kind of letting loose at home. Researchers have a term for this, right? The theory of emotional reserve.
Emotional reserve.
Yeah.
Like a bank account for being nice.
Kinda, yeah. You've only got so much play nice energy. You spend it all day being polite to difficult clients or that annoying coworker, you know? By the time you get home, the tank's empty and you feel, maybe subconsciously, entitled to just let it all hang out.
Yeah, so we dump all the negativity on the people closest to us.
That's often how it plays out. The irony, as the sources point out, is we can sometimes be way more patient with a casual acquaintance who needs support than with our own partner. It's not depleting those resources.
So how does this everyday aggression actually look? Does it differ, say, between men and women, or depending on who it is?
Yeah, there's a clear split in how hostility shows up. First, you've got direct aggression. This is the overt stuff, yelling, confronting someone, doing something directly hurtful.
Okay.
This happens more in relationships we see as stable, like family or long-term partners. There's this underlying belief, maybe, that, okay, I can yell at my sibling, or I can have this fight with my partner and they'll still be here tomorrow. The relationship feels durable enough to take the hit.
And did the research say anything about who uses this more?
Yeah, looking at studies on heterosexual couples, the reviews found men were statistically more likely to use direct aggression, and that includes sexual aggression too.
Okay, so what's the alternative then?
The alternative is non-direct aggression. This is more indirect, like spreading rumors or gossip. Or it can be passive aggression, things like intentionally ignoring calls or texts.
The silent treatment.
Exactly. These are non-confrontational tactics. They give you deniability, right? Oh, sorry, I just didn't see your message. We tend to use these with people like acquaintances or colleagues where the stakes feel lower, or maybe where direct confrontation feels too risky.
So direct aggression for people we trust not to leave, and passive aggression for everyone else. That's quite a distinction.
It really highlights how perceived safety influences the type of aggression we feel comfortable using.
Okay, so that explains the everyday stuff, the lashing out when we feel safe. But then there's the really tough question, isn't there? Why do we sometimes seem to actively seek out relationships that are guaranteed to be hard? Why choose familiar pain?
Right. This moves us beyond just, running out of patience. We're getting into deeper subconscious territory now. The sources are pretty clear. Many of us have this innate, often unconscious drive to find partners who feel familiar.
Familiar, even if that familiarity is linked to pain.
Especially then sometimes. It's often tied to unhealthy or painful patterns we experienced earlier in life.
This sounds like the transference effect we read about, being drawn to people who echo past relationships, maybe even with our parents.
Exactly that. It's not always literal, like choosing someone who looks like your dad. It's about the feeling, the dynamic. If your childhood involved, say, a really critical parent, or maybe a partner who was dismissive, your subconscious might latch onto someone new who shows those same traits. It registers as known. It might hurt, sure, but there's a strange, twisted kind of comfort in the predictability of it. It's like your emotional brain says, this landscape, I know how to navigate this misery.
Wow, choosing misery because it feels like home. That's heavy.
And the roots of this often lie in our attachment styles. These are the blueprints for bonding we develop really early on, usually with primary caregivers, and they tend to be quite sticky throughout our adult lives.
Sticky, right. They shape how we approach love and intimacy.
They really do. Think of it as 4 basic ways we handle closeness.
Can you give us the quick rundown on how these show up in adults?
Sure. So first, you have secure attachment. These folks generally feel worthy of love, they communicate needs pretty well, and they're comfortable with both intimacy and independence. Healthy stuff.
Okay, the ideal.
Then you have the insecure styles. There's anxious preoccupied. They often crave closeness, but worry a lot about abandonment. They might seem clingy or need constant reassurance. Then there's dismissive avoidant. These individuals value independence highly, sometimes to an extreme. They can seem distant, emotionally unavailable, and might shut down or pull away when things get too close for comfort.
Right. Keep people at arm's length.
Exactly. And finally, fearful avoidant, sometimes called disorganized. This is the most conflicted style. They want intimacy, but they're also deeply afraid of it. This can lead to really confusing behavior, pushing people away, then pulling them back. Lots of ambivalence.
And the real trap, the sources say, is when these insecure styles get drawn to each other, like magnets.
Oh, absolutely. It's classic. The anxious person is often intensely attracted to the avoidant person.
Why? That seems like a recipe for disaster.
It often is, but think about it. The anxious person craves closeness and validation, and the avoidant person's distance presents this constant challenge, this pursuit. And for the avoidant person, the anxious person's neediness might initially feel flattering, but eventually confirms their fear that intimacy is suffocating.
So they end up confirming each other's deepest negative beliefs about relationships.
Precisely. The anxious person gets their fear of abandonment triggered, and the avoidant gets their belief that closeness is dangerous confirmed. It's magnetic because it fits their unconscious script.
It's like the program for heartbreak. And making it even harder, you mentioned our rational brain kind of checks out when we fall in love.
It really seems to. You've got this split in the brain, right? The logical prefrontal cortex versus the emotional limbic system.
Yeah.
When we're hit with that initial euphoria of falling in love, the dopamine, the oxytocin rush, something fascinating happens. The amygdala, which is like our brain's threat detector, our fear center, it actually gets deactivated, turns down the volume.
So love literally makes us less able to spot danger. It mutes the alarm bells.
That's a great way to put it. The intense positive emotion overrides the threat signals. So even if, rationally, part of you sees some red flags, the emotional love-drunk part of your brain isn't really registering them, you're way more likely to overlook things you'd normally run from.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. Moving to the really extreme end of this, those relationships defined by intense highs and devastating lows, the agony and ecstasy dynamic.
Right, where passionate love feels completely tangled up with equally dramatic, painful conflict, constant fighting and making up.
And the sources suggest we might be drawn to these cycles for deeper reasons, like they're trying to teach us something. Yeah. Almost like holding up a mirror to our own issues.
That's definitely one perspective, that we subconsciously seek out the drama that forces us to confront parts of ourselves we've disowned or feel shame about. It's a tough way to learn a lesson.
Yeah. Dr. Randy Gunther, one of the psychologists cited, identified some specific kind of dark reasons people get stuck in these love-pain cycles. It often looks like self-sabotage from the outside.
It really does. But there can be an underlying, albeit dysfunctional, logic to it.
Okay, let's break those down. The first one was about testing.
Yeah. So if someone deep down doesn't believe love can last, or maybe that they don't deserve it, they might constantly probe for flaws in their partner. They're basically trying to brace themselves for the inevitable loss by finding fault first.
So they provoke problems.
They can, yeah. They look for trouble, pick fights, basically push the partner away to confirm their belief that, see, it wasn't going to work anyway. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Wow. Okay. And the next one. Believing sorrow is necessary for love.
This is the idea that love isn't real or deep unless it involves intense suffering. These couples might have incredibly vicious fights saying truly hurtful things, going for the jugular, because they believe that the intensity of the pain has to be matched by an equally intense makeup session afterward.
So stability feels boring or fake.
Possibly. The drama becomes the fuel. The relationship thrives on those extreme swings, not on quiet contentment.
And the third reason, this one feels particularly bleak, using drama to manage mood.
Yeah. Drama can alleviate depression. For someone battling clinical depression, life can feel flat, heavy, gray. The sheer novelty, the challenge, the adrenaline rush of a huge fight, and then the intense relief or passion of making up. That whole cycle generates powerful reward chemicals in the brain. Dopamine, adrenaline. It provides a temporary but potent lift from the depression.
So they tolerate the chaos because it makes them feel something, even if it's painful.
Exactly. It's a very high price to pay for feeling alive, but for some, it seems worth it in the moment.
And the last one brings us back to self-worth, doesn't it? Low self-worth martyrdom.
Tragically common. Someone with low self-esteem might genuinely feel they deserve the pain they get in the relationship, that it's the cost of being loved at all.
Yeah.
Or, slightly differently, they might derive a sense of identity or even dignity from enduring the pain. Being the martyr, the one who forgives, the one who stays committed despite it all, that becomes their role.
Which ties right back to that earlier point.
Yeah.
People stay in dysfunctional situations if they don't think they have better options. Or if their self-esteem is low, accepting the love we think we deserve.
Exactly. And we can't forget other factors like unhealed fears, especially a deep fear of being alone, which can make people much less selective about partners.
Right. Grab onto anyone rather than be single.
And also, just the power of childhood modeling. If you grew up watching your parents engage in high drama love pain cycles, that might just feel normal, expected, like you're powerless to create anything different.
This has been a lot. Pretty heavy stuff, but definitely clarifying. It seems like whether it's the everyday aggression that comes from feeling maybe too safe at home, or actively choosing difficult partners because they feel familiar in a painful way, it all points back to our core beliefs, our past experiences, the stuff that hasn't healed.
That really seems to be the through line in the sources, yeah. But, and this is crucial, the sources also emphasize possibility. The brain isn't fixed. Neuroplasticity is real.
Ability to change.
Exactly. We can grow, adapt, change patterns with intention and experience. Recognizing these patterns, that self-awareness, that's the absolute first step. It's hard, but it's possible to shift these things. We aren't just doomed to repeat them forever.
So for you listening now, thinking about your own patterns, maybe the small stuff at home, maybe bigger relationship choices, here's a final thought to chew on. Adapted from psychologist Dr. Shefali Sabri. She says, we don't live a life. We live a pattern.
Powerful.
It is. So if your current patterns are causing you or others pain, ask yourself, what's the absolute smallest, most intentional step you could take, maybe even today, to strengthen that rational part of your brain over the familiar emotional impulse? Just one small step to start changing the trajectory.